So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. We will do some reviewing, some scoring, if you will. The other team here, this is the time where you can evaluate the other team. So please make sure I'll collect those from you at the end of the presentation here. We have our sheets ready to go. Thank you for joining online here as well. So kicking it off to you.
All right, this is the Tipton Community Climbers. The group consists of 4 members: me, Alan Swaney, Frank Boyer, Abby Oberdorf, and Gracie Young. We're going on an issue of drug and substance abuse within our school and TC overall. Our main mission statement is to educate and support Tipton so that we may empower students to choose to be free of substance use. The importance of our mission statement in our community is important in 3 ways: to the physical and mental health of every student, to the environment and atmosphere of kids and to the health and well-being of prosperity of Tipton.
So what is the issue? The issue is that substance abuse, vaping, and tobacco misuse is heavily present in the adolescent population. Rates of crimes in Tipton that involve substance abuse is high. There is a lack of community-based treatment and resources. The relationship between domestic violence and substance abuse in Tipton is concerning. And finally, the minimal programs and youth programming for substance abuse in Tipton High School. What is substance abuse? Drug addiction, also called substance use disorder, is a disease that affects a person's brain and behavior and leads to an inability to control the use of an illegal drug or medicine. Substances such as alcohol, marijuana, and nicotine also are considered drugs. When you're addicted, you may continue using the drug despite the harm it causes. Now back to Owen.
All right, what do the experts say? This is with me and Mr. Lyday, who's in the crowd. Me and him had an interview, I believe, not too long ago, and there's some evidence that was found. On average, more recently, about 1 kid per week is found using vapes, tobacco, and marijuana. The school also plans on using cessation classes for who may need it, and for the school to add more smoke and vape detectors in the lockers and other places that either don't already have it or don't have any adult supervisor. So far, there's only been 1 student found with alcohol, but there may be more. And also, there was not that long ago on Wednesday, maybe a week or 2 ago, there was a drug search conducted with everyone putting their bags outside and all the lockers searched, and that image is some of the things we found. Okay.
So on October 10th, we did the drug search, like you said. I conducted an interview on the same day with Mr. Leach, finding that confiscations of drugs have increased rapidly from 2021 to 2022. And some of the reasons we believe is so that they can feel better from COVID, like their overall mental state, and they've been using these drugs as a supplement for their mental health. So I'm going to go through some of the things I asked him, some of the questions, and what he responded with. So the first question that we had was, why do only some people get addicted to drugs? And he said, I can't begin to know all the reasons people become addicted to drugs. It could be peer pressure, but I believe it has more to do with their environment, mobile home status, and then it goes into some people may use over-the-counter drugs that they can find in the cabinets, stuff like that. And over 10 students have been caught with drugs, vapes, and alcohol, which is probably a lot more than just what we found, because kids can be very sneaky with it. And then we went into some of the other problems we see within the drug and alcohol or school corporation. The biggest problem that he saw is the legalization of drugs outside the states. It's becoming easier and easier to find these drugs, which then becomes a part of the school, and where no alcohol or tobacco use up to 1,000 feet away. So that goes into the education of the students. we then went on to say the biggest area that can be addressed. From an administrative standpoint, I would love a list of resources that may help students that are already using these drugs. It would also be great if there was a concentrated community effort to raise awareness of the dangers of vaping, drinking, and drug use among young people, which is what we're trying to address today. What has the school done to prevent drug abuse? The high school with policies that prohibit the use of alcohol. Then we implemented an SRO officer, which has helped with the drug searches and stuff like that. This may also open up resources for the school, for the SRO officer, and the enforcement of law.
What are the statistics? Some info we found from the Tipton County Substance Use and Prevention Council is that in 2019, 55% of the arrests were substance abuse related here in Tipton. From August 2019 to March 2020, there were 7 total reports for vaping in high school and middle school. That was also during COVID shutting down school. In 2017, rates of crimes with substance abuse involvement were 50.8%, and the deaths from alcohol impaired driving have increased by 28% in the past 5 years. Back to Drake.
So this is a part of the anonymous substance survey we sent out at the beginning of October. We had 103 students that submitted a response to this, and out of those 103 respondees, 23.3% of the students have admitted to doing marijuana, nicotine, pills, etc. 17% of students also admitted to participating in these drugs at school. 3% of students have also done cocaine, methamphetamine, etc. And then 23.2% of students have said they have drank alcohol at school or at home. More than half of these students in the survey said they know someone who's been affected by these drugs listed above. However, over 60% of the students said they would be willing to get help from someone over the school. So this is an anonymous substance survey results. It just lists what we've, some of the questions we had. Have you ever done party drugs with peers? Then it shows the statistics of how many haven't and how many have. That number should be a lot less than 23.3% of 103 students that answered that survey. So, and to put that in perspective, that could be more than half of the students, they just were admitted to it. And then another one of the questions was, have you ever done party drugs at school? Some of them said yes, a lot of them said no. I've been offered, I've declined, I've before, but not recently. And I know there's a lot more than those at school again. I've seen them in the bathrooms, or in the hallways, they're super sneaky with it, or in the classrooms, which goes apart to our education and makes people not focus. So. And then here's some other ones we had. You drink alcohol, 76.7% said no. Sometimes it was 8.7%, and about 14% of people said they have before or they are right now. And then 34% of people said that they've done nicotine, marijuana, pills, methamphetamine, cocaine, and then the other probably 18% of people said they did as well. So that's over 50% of the people.
All right. So what are the other schools in surrounding areas do? These schools have hosted the mock crash within the last 4 years: Western, Rochester, North Putnam, and Bloomington South. And there are several other examples of schools in the Indiana chapter, SAD group, being Frankfort, Danville, Franklin Central, and Eastern.
How do we decrease this problem? We have a little bit of an overview of some of the topics that we're going to talk about more in detail throughout our presentation. But we wanted to bring back the SAD program, which is Students Against Destructive Decisions. Provide more resources throughout our school, pamphlets to send home with parents who have had children that have been through substance use in the building. Flyers, posters, just to raise awareness and provide hotlines and resources for the people who need it. And we would like to invite a guest speaker to Tipton again. It's been a few years since we've had one. And a mock crash. It's been almost 10 years since we've had one. So we're going to talk about that in more detail. SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions, formerly known as Students Against Drug Driving. Now, with the growing marijuana problem, they have changed their name to Students Against Destructive Decisions. It is a national nonprofit dedicated to the safety and wellness of all students. They have 40 years of expertise, and they have been facilitating educational and engaging programming. SAD operates through school and community chapters, similar to like an FFA chapter or 4-H, things like that. There's different chapters throughout the state. Like we mentioned before, there's surrounding schools that have had SAD chapters. And it would be, we would have, sorry, one of our teachers at Tipton, she's a new teacher, Mrs. Gonzalez, she's a science teacher. She has already said that she would like to work with us and be our advisor for our SAD chapter. So we'd like to get that going as soon as possible. Providing resources, similar to the domestic violence hotline cards that are in public restrooms throughout Tipton, we would like to have a similar concept through our school and have these business card hotlines where they could find resources anonymously. There are no cameras in the bathroom, and it's a safer place to get help without verbally having to get help. So we would also like pamphlets in the office for parents. So the parents would have resources and addresses and phone numbers to call. You know, what do I do if my child is struggling with this? How do I handle this? And emails with resources from administration. I think we get a newsletter every month, so I think it would be really beneficial to provide those resources as often as we can.
So this is the assessment that I found online. So a lot of people don't know they are addicted to drugs until it's too late. This affects them both mentally and physically. So I have provided an assessment to help people with these addictions. It's helpful in recognizing substance misuse in yourself or loved ones. The answers are 100% confidential. They can be used as a resource. It gives next steps to help figure out addiction levels and what can be done, and it's completely anonymous. You can also use your insurance, and normally it's free. They have a rehab center around the United States. And then there's a link to the self-assessment here. Yeah, if you want to. So it's through drugabuse.com. It's a government website. But if you scroll down a little bit, it just goes through all the different steps. There's 10 questions, and scroll up a little bit. Ask, are you worried about yourself or loved ones? And then it says myself, and then it asks you some questions about like what you're addicted to, how often you use these drugs, what you use them for, what got you started for them, and then it shows on a scale of 1 to 10 how addicted they think you are, and then it also says like this isn't a medical clinic or anything saying that we say you're actually addicted, but it's a good reference on showing what is actually happening, and it's completely free as well.
Something else we want to do is bring back the guest speaker Nathan Harmon, who has been to Tipton High School before about 6 years ago. He's from Indiana. He speaks all over the U.S. He speaks at universities, public and private schools, conferences, retreats, and many other venues. He shares from his own personal experiences with drug addiction, suicidal thoughts, self-destructive lifestyle, and
Mock crash. The objective of a mock crash is to educate teens, parents, and community members about the tragedy of traffic crashes. It is a scripted scene similar to a play or a TV show where we would have these cars set up that have already been crashed before, and we would set them up to look like a crash has just happened. This would be a convocation that Tipton High School students would go watch, where a student would be arrested for driving under the influence, and there would be special effects makeup, and it would really put it into perspective. This is what will happen. This is what could happen if you make those destructive decisions, especially behind the wheel. So there would be a fire truck from the fire department, and we would have support from the police, and we've already talked to Officer Maddox about it. He works with the tobacco and Alcohol Coalition, and we have their support. So we would really like to get this going again. Yeah, so our plan for a mock crash would be during prom week. On that Friday, we will not have school, the Friday, the day of prom. So we were hoping to do it Thursday, where we would be on a convocation schedule. We would have a small convocation in the girls' gym where we would give sort of the debriefing of what's about to happen and what they're about to see, sort of a trigger warning. If this is something that you have been through, something that you cannot stand to watch, take a breather, go to the office, because it's pretty intense. So we would like to have it in the student parking lot, so we go from the girls' gym directly to the student parking lot, where we would have our vehicles set up and our actors from the drama department, and we were hoping to have some sound equipment ready so we could have the scripted scene on a speaker so everybody could hear what was going on. But yeah, that's kind of our working plan for mock crash.
What do we want the outcome to be? We want parents, staff, and students to be more educated and informed about substance use. We want students to feel comfortable to reach out for help in the school and find the help that they need. We want to inspire students to lead a life free from drug and alcohol use, and just an overall improvement in the social, mental, and physical aspect of our Tipton High School students.
So these are some of the frequently asked questions. The first one was, how do you plan to start SAT again? We went over, we've talked to Ms. Gonzalez, and she's on board with being the officer or the leader for the SAT program. She would be the sponsor. We created a SAT account online. From there, we just have to be approved, and then they'll start giving us resources once we have members in our school corporation. We'll also host meetings during advisory or after school, like a club, like FFA or science club, or like just stuff like that. And then another question that people have had is, how do you know this will make a positive impact on high school? We know from the answers given in the anonymous survey that people throughout our school corporation feel that we need more resources, and other individuals that I've talked to have said the same thing. And they said that having the SAT program started up again in anonymous ways, talking to people about it would be great. We genuinely believe that if we put more light on the topic and offer support for students, we could really make a difference throughout our school corporation. So how do we plan to create a mock crash? Like Abby said, we've already spoken to the SRO officer. He's trying to get the volunteer fire department on board with it. They could use it as a training resource. And then we would get Murray's Body Shop to help fund some of that. They have a lot of cars that they're just sitting in their backyard and they have nothing to do with them. So if they donate them, they could use that as a tax write-off as well. But from there, we would also get some of the other officers on board, and most of it should be funded already, but we might need a little bit of funding to help pay for that. And the budget needed, we're not entirely sure yet. We're still working on those numbers, so we can give you more information about that if you need that information. So some of the barriers we have that we've already broken, and some that we need, this is basically like a timeline. The first thing we had was we needed a SAT officer for a sponsor, and we got Ms. Gonzalez on board last week, so that fixes that problem. Funding and logistics for Nathan Harmon. It's not cheap to bring in a guest speaker, they're making a living off of it, but we're just gonna need a little bit of funding for that, and we're starting to talk to them and everything. I'm sure that will go well. And then the logistics and potential funding for the mock crash, like I listed before, we had an SRO officer on board, volunteer firefighters, and the sheriff department has been informed about the situation. So some of the potential sponsors that we've conducted a list for was the Chamber of Commerce, the Tipton County Foundation, Tipton Community Schools, Campbell Family Foundation, Indiana Youth Institute, Tobacco and Alcohol Coalition, and SAT. So where do we go from here?
here's the timeline that we have made. We want to get everything started, and right now we got our sponsor for SAD, and then next month we will start giving out the resources throughout the high school and the middle school. By January, we want to have a SAD program established with members. February, we want to secure the funding for the crash and guest speaker. By April, that's when we want to have the hosting of the mock crash during prom time. By next school year in August, that's when we want to kick it off with the guest speaker. And then September, that's when we'll have our SAD club rollouts for new and existing members.
Thank you so much for your time. And if there's any questions now, we're going to open the floor. Anything? All right,
I think we may reserve questions until both groups have gone.
Sure, that's fine.
sure.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
Are you clicking? Okay.